said like T is or theory is like a voting issue is like kind of nonsensical. Yeah. What about like topicality issues?
T, yeah, I will vote on T. Right. I think most theory arguments are not.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna be running like I have to have like nothing like stupid.
All right.
But like, and then you said condo, you're not. Like,
yeah, I'm not great for condo. Condo bad as a voting issue. But obviously, it's up to the debaters, and I'll listen to whatever you have to say.
All right. Everybody good?
Let me open the doc.
Yeah.
I'm shaking the tables.
Part 1 is affirmative. The classroom is key place to combat oppression, colonial, non-biased position, one, the challenge power structure, make students aware of oppression. That's Espinoza 03, class practice, integrating instructional strategies and values, specifically knowledge, one needs to know how to construct reputation of role, place within the pedagogical and political ideology, operating, reproduce, we have instructional practice, social into the categories, success, academic and practice, transmitted messages, including sites of critical activities, and the forms of violence, characters, and role of constitution is unproductive issues, question from debate to substantive issues, to a virtue question that's always available, arguing about how the foreign debates better to force to tap into more procedures never engage. He sends the constitutional oppression as by consequences of action preferred because A, arbitrariness, identity is morally arbitrary, so like discrimination undermines morality, B, inclusion, abstract prerequisites, domination is the biggest impact, so we can't form all theories without inclusion, C, theory that connotes an equal side ownership would not be accepted by those at the bottom uses of the political philosophy, which must be justified, but also citizen theoretical critique is insufficient, or but a discussion should be based on finding policy change in the empirical world that can both guarantee values and change title Christian oppression. That's current 14. Debate parties consequences of thinking personal politics refers to one paradigm, one ideal theory of the model is an ideal model which argues that one is the average way this gap between what is actual and what is determined by theory, given opposed and right, go to the discussion whether the concrete nature of oppression is tangible policy, reorienting trade. Our attempts to situate those disparity cannot suggest that the various complexities of problems are logically and ideological from the theoretical endorsement is aware of problems that every goal would not command us remedy. Our ideological tendency of oppression is upheld by the deliberate the expedient engaged centered around utilitarian threats, distinction to distract attention. That's as Malden 84. Fear taught people to powerless to attempt to change the world, nuclear arms and terrorists, people don't submission. The issues have been justified because they have been placed in the differentiating how we can talk about this position. They will know what that culture can be convinced by many too more willing to demonstrate for survival at any cost and struggle for liberty. Part 2 is the plan text. American Indian tribal governments in the United States will enact a universal handgun ban in American Indian reservations. To clarify, anyone on territory, whether as an Indian or non-Indian, will be subject to the rule and punishment determined by respective government. That's Riley 1. That's Riley 1, bracket for grammar. Tribes will enact universal handgun form of civil regulation, which will make Indians and non-Indians all accepted tribal civil liability, tribal and considered civil distinction between Indians and non-Indians within any country as the civil gun ban within any country would apply to everyone. The ban would be applicable to all of those in reservation that actually put non-Indians in a strong position on reservation to do so. A tribe may have civil code regulated conduct of all the reservations. These also apply to everyone equally pursuing a tribe's inherent sovereignty and sovereign authority. Part 3 of the advantage 1 is material inequality. Currently, tribal governments can't prosecute non-Indians, making the reservations and havens for non-Indian crime. Non-Indians receive greater status than Indians are able to subject them to oppression, violence, themselves, multiple wars. That's Riley 2. This gap in criminal jurisdiction has been the subject of the critique about the vast majority of reservation are home to both Indians and non-Indians residents are free to move on and after the of the government. Tribes freedom to tailor laws to meet the needs of local communities empowered the Indian nation to implement regulation and protection. Tribes basic coherence and consistency in the basic model of federal Indian law regarding Indians has proved faulty. What is offered non-Indian violence to reduce crime. That's Raleigh 3. Tribes have to say they will have to try to restrain their limited resources and act laws. If the tribe is a large amount of gun crime committed by members of criminal prohibition on guns may result in reduced reservation crime and pursuant to inherent tribal sovereignty. Tribal also committed prosecute all those who violate the ban. The OSFG fails to define the gun regulations specifically Indians don't track or enforce laws. Inconsistency in the ability to enforce laws on non-Indians lead to criminals getting off. As Raleigh 4. Federal criminal laws, including gun laws, are in fact in any country where there are gaps in or issues of non-enforcement arise. The reservation will look to tribal governments to define the scope of gun regulation. Non-Indians are not subject to tribal criminal law. Advantage to self-determination federal law as it pertains to American Indian reservations and adequate rooted in hard discrimination. The one sees a very dramatic shift from the USFG to establishing laws based on its own grounds. Doyle and E11. The federal system for serving Indian countries violates the rights of Native American living there. It applies to only Native Americans. It is unaccountable, needlessly complicated, underfunded, and results in disproportionate too much severe health with the same crimes imposed by Congress for the racial intention of that system was central to the assimilation policy and destruction of church and tribal institutions. The architecture of the system has remained frozen in time, imposes obstacles, sovereignty, self-determination, current tribal status places tribes in inferior positions, facilitating the process of self-determination is critical to reimagine the position preparing the death of the culture. But it's 410. The federal government cannot directly enforce federal power. There's no such track on the federal government to the tribe. There's no provision in the Constitution limiting parties to affect tribe. The federal government can limit to people take their property. Tribes not power to prosecute for serious crime. Tribe. Native Americans have started. Native tribes have started the self-determination movement to achieve tribal restoration policy means by which tribes can realize the full potential of their sovereign parts. Part 5 is framing. American Indians are consistently left out of the topic discussion and rhetoric involving guns valid towards them. While also supported by the communities here, good the role of ballot and judges both the investment on the oppression of the American Indians through competitive post-fiat policies. Raleigh 5 with Indian nation set by tribal laws. The questions regarding gun ownership arise from those who are living under tribal authority. The question for guns and Indians are legal or untouched. Gun Indians are left out of discussion when they're included to typically recount settlers fear of the hostile Indians. The possibly American academics to the relation between Indians and guns is here's considering the prominence given the legal scholarship of the Second Amendment gun control and the unique guarantee of protection applicable to Indian tribal governments. We have a responsibility to act parts of the solution to the culture genocide of American Indians when it's brought up. We have continued with the problem, must solve it. Otherwise, we are part of the genocide. That's true. Tool 3. Americans must come and say their process facing of their national history. Americans will become parts of the solution and remain parts of the problem. There's no place for bystanders. The Holocaust the objective, which means framing issues clearly, is a prerequisite of character, moving closer to a genuine aberration reality. Domestic or dependent nation status is racist and genocidal. Genocidal legal ethical system itself is based on a European notion of property and hierarchy that were responsible for taking land in the first place. Of Williams in 86. Any rights of the tribe in the by the hierarchical conception of sending European theory to alien people there. They're not allowed to possess the prerogative to belong to absolute sovereign and independent nation. Family or mythic categories centrally the European legal discourse become embodied in generalizing ideology that presupposes the right of subjugation of American Indians within their sovereignty. Skip the next card. Underview. Once mission for the regulations and reform policy making describes poor hybrid strategy and policy advantage of conflict law, country policy, policy, treating Hemanth Sanjeev forces around each living up to state commitments, strains within institutionally down the privilege orthodox. The strategy map with Hemanth from the institution for this the cultivating allies and actions possible when you speak their legal common ground. This master can always crush you. When you see me over not to prevent your legend. You use reasonable and to in order to there's always been motivation. So you prefer the motive reasonable and soft the top leadership depending attitude that structure abuse and negative assault. It's being fairness and ground comes reasonably. I didn't read 3 or the 4th framing argument.
You just cut out the. And then, yeah. Alright.
Good?
Alright. Ready to process?
Yeah.
Who does tribal governments have control over?
What do you mean?
Who do they have control over?
Everybody on their reservation.
Everybody on their reservation. Your evidence coming out of the advantages says that they only have control over Indians, and that the problem is that they don't have control over non-Indians.
Sure. So the argument the argument and the plan is that current gun laws indicate that if there's violence committed by non-Indians on Indians, the Native American tribes cannot prosecute them because they're considered non-Indians. What the 1AC tries to do is they take these gun laws and they make it enforced throughout the reservation, regardless of whether it's based on Indians or regardless of who the people are, whether they're Indians or non-Indians. So they can civilly test them.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess my question then is, how do you who gives the tribal governments the power to control non-tribal?
Well, the tribal governments are not like the tribes regulate their own reservations, so they would pass the law.
Okay, yeah, they regulate the reservations. I'm just trying to get to this. They regulate the reservations.
Are you asking for like enforcement?
But how do they enforce it? Yeah,
okay,
how do they control
so
non-Indians?
It's based on civil litigations. If you commit the crime, you are tested in civil court, and you will be given.
Yeah. So Riley 4, here's a word right out of your ass. Non-Indians are not subject to tribal criminal law. So how do you
current
implement
tribal criminal law?
How do you implement that? It does
see,
not say current before that.
The 1AC, okay, it's talking about current criminal law. I think I know my app, and I think the argument is
just like misreading what you read. Okay, whatever. We'll get to that. You say that the roll of the ballot debate is bad, and then provide a roll of the ballot. How do you not link?
I don't say the roll of the ballot debate is bad.
At the very top of the app, you
I
say
said
roll of the ballot
contestation is unproductive. Therefore, the app should get the roll of the ballot.
Okay,
that's
so
the argument.
Basically AFC. Cool. All right. Let's go down to your Riley 4 evidence. You say that the USFG fails.
Mm-hmm.
Why does this mean that like the USFG like can't solve? It's just a reason as to why like the gun regulations aren't good enough, right?
Yeah. Okay. So the argument is that USFG gun regulations in the SQO are particularly bad because they cannot enforce them in tribal reservations. Also, you would be going against, if you want to read a counterplan, you'd be going against the entire second advantage and all of the framing arguments about why using the USFG would be particularly bad.
Okay, on Kapoor, and this kind of applies to Curry, but mostly Kapoor, you say we have to use hegemonic intervention and use policies. What do we do when groups are denied access to those methods
What do you
of
Even if the
recourse.
state is bad, we should still use the state to solve some problems.
If American Indians, your evidence in the AF, specifically Riley 5, says that the American Indians do not have access to political action. So then, if they do not have that agency, how do they enact the policy?
Where does Riley 5 say that? Riley 5 is a framing, or is the goal of the
Okay, so
argument.
you
Why is it
disagree.
not?
You think American Indians have access to policies?
Okay, I'm not
Or do
understanding
you
your question.
justify that I need a competitive post-fiat policy?
Curry and Kapoor.
Okay. 4 minutes. I assume we're doing 4 minutes prep?
Yeah.
Okay, starting now. Stop prep, 142 remaining.
I need a little more paper.
Yeah, alright.
The 3 beat up.
3, 4. What's up, man? How are you? Come through. It's good to see you. Yeah, Do you have a job at this tournament, or are you judging everyone?
I was very much on the way from the tournament, so I'm just playing around.
Oh, that's cool. That's good. If we can hang out.
Sure. Why are you the blue ribbon judge?
What does that mean?
You're on the blue ribbon.
Is that even real?
You're like a prestigious.
Order is 2 off case and 2 off case.
Okay.
We're on case, just so I know.
It'll start on your Curry 14 evidence, and then it's kind of top down.
Okay.
Grab some water. Alright. Judge ready?
I'm good.
Opponent ready? 80 intro interpretation. Valentine's 95 defines the United States as a federal government, not tribal government. C, the side can use tribal government as an actor. B, it's a violation. Has two objectives. American Indian tribal government as an actor. C, standards. One is multi-actor fiat. It's unfair to fiat that many different actors in the exact same way, the exact same time, since it's not real world and an abuse of fiat. UShistory.org, no date. There are between 140 and 160 different American Indian tribes. There's no single Native American language. It would be as difficult for the Mohawk Indians of the east to converse with Zuni Indians of the west as it would be for Germans to converse with Turks. Their act would justify thousands of cities as an actor or millions of people all doing the same thing, which is obviously unfair and impossible. 2 is predictability. A, most topics it's assumed the actor is the federal government, not a part of it. C, the long-standing tradition of policy topics always including and focusing on the USFG. And B, most of the topic list talks about federal government decisions like Heller or calls on Obama to enact an executive order or on Congress to do something, not random tribal governments. And 3 is ground. Kills no ground for D's like federalism and politics, which are common on all topics and on this topic specifically. Also, K's like biopower and statism don't make sense on the tribal level. And 4, topical version solves. Changing American Indian tribal governments to the USFG allows full discussion of American Indians while maintaining the hyper-specificity you desire, since the ban will only apply on American Indian reservations. Cross-apply is Riley 5 evidence. This is the reason it's why the USFG is a preferable act, as it also is the only one that has jurisdiction over non-Indian residents. D is fairness. Fairness is key to decide the better debater, which can't be done when one has an unfair advantage. Use convenient in terms as a reasonability advice, judge intervention. I don't know what you think you also might use my statements as mentions. Any other would be arbitrary on, and I'm cross-at his reasonability standards here. 1, reasonability advice, judge intervention. I don't know what you think is reasonable. Judge intervention is the fastest link to unfairness because none of our acts matter. And 2, reasonability advantage gets to no specific judge's BS major choice gives them an arbitrary structural advantage in the round-on theory. And topical fairness requirements are key to effective dialogue. Monopolizing strategy makes the discussion one-sided and exclusionary. Galloway 7. Debates is an argumentative table where parties always set positions they have to set by topic. When equity suffers, it undermines respect. To be fair is a condition of equality. Voice cases that suspend fairness, exclude negatives, unprepared one-sided comes to the able, unable to participate in the dialogue instead of allowing dialogue to be modified by the negative response. Subverts any meaningful role to the neg substitutes for a topical election do not accrue dialogical benefits. And vote neg that destroy our ability to meaningfully evaluate the winner of the round based on who was the better debater, which is the purpose of the judge. So you should reject arguments that prevent you from exercising the role. And reject the debater. The entire round is already seen since the NC strategy is determined by the FA. 1A or either system makes dialogue impossible in such a short speech act, since it escapes the entire one and C gives the neg only 6 minutes of the NR versus the AF 7 minutes. This outweighs A. It governs their access to substantive arguments, so it logically has to be decided before substance. Since if I wouldn't, they shouldn't have access to that argument to begin with. It's a prior question. And B, I couldn't contest the AF to begin with. They can't apply the AF against C since that assumes their AF was legitimate to begin with. They don't get access to claims that weren't contestable by me. And C, it directly concerns the role of the judge, since the entire point of the judge is to decide who won the round. And no RVST is an AF burden. Next off is the Give Back to Land cake. Tribal sovereignty is a vehicle of colonialism. The concept perpetuates colonial dominion over tribes and is synonymous with internal colonialism. Derek O. 2K. The legal history of tribal sovereignty starts with colonialism under the earliest context when the New World colonizing powers asserted sovereignty over indigenous peoples. The result was that indigenous nations were legally stripped of their independence after their existence was not recognized at all. Their lands treated vaguely vacant. Indigenous people were declared to have a right of occupancy but not stripped of their land. Supreme legal authority lays that the indigenous nations rise their occupancy rights. The basic legal propositions for federal relations with indigenous nations were governments having subordinate sovereignty related to the right of occupancy. Full sovereignty, they were regarded as having authority over their own relations amongst themselves, and internal or tribal sovereignty. This Loyola and the people with these limits are under the political control of the government of the United States. And fears of internal colonialism erect the U.S. as master and erase indigenous sovereignty. Bird 2011. As a concept of internal colonialism to discuss first in the United States and teach the circle of the distinction between indigenous political sovereignty recognized by treaties and individual sovereignty that forms the basis for inclusive personhood within U.S. multicultural democracy. Colossus, the United States is Catholic is the master. The internal is later supplemental only such discussion by U.S. hegemony that asserts an internal with a symbolic order that exists in the external real for indigenous nations. Skip Churchill 96. And you retrench the foreign domestic distinction that excludes indigenous people who cannot claim legal status as either foreign or domestic, and vividly proven by the underview. Braniel 07. Indigenous tribes were left with neither external or domestic remedies to get congressional peace. They were not external enough to compel the renegotiated treaty terms, and they were not domestic enough as citizens to have rights guaranteed under the U.S. Constitution. The American system denied indigenous people the power of political agencies, either foreign or domestic political actors. And colonialism causes indigenous people to be structurally placed in a space of social death where agency is separate from their existence. Bird 11. Low inclusion of native peoples, it is as an addendum to men and women from Africa forcibly transported into America with native people constituting slave society. Standalone colonialism does a very graphic in which the advocates of the continent struggle for freedom. Indigenous people cannot give rights to any historical agency that take the transit through which the dialectic of the subject and object occurs. And colonialism, root cause of war, Street 4. Explicitly genocidal homeland that's also on Native American sector on foundational racist patterns and subsequent U.S. global butchery. The United encouraged U.S. savagery in the Philippines and down which and all before encouraged U.S. savagery in Afghanistan. It's a vicious cycle of recon prices folly for a nation if they can't stand about the judgment of imperial or ignorance and criminality Americans in the world will raise permanently imperial war and the construction of an ever-moving proposing U.S. fortress state. The alt is to engage in the politics of impossible and reimagine the world when we kick the U.S. off the planet. Prioritization is key, it's a matter of sequencing. Churchill 96. No form of decolonization has ever been realistic of immediate without James the Saturday, and he said no prayer for attaining victory in order to begin their sort of anti-colonial fights that do abandon orthodox realism in favor of what they do to be right. In each case, they succeeded. American Indians have no real alternative but to carry down realistic dimensions of concepts of non-individual rights. It's like the land of indigenous nations can be ruled large numbers of non-individual join in the struggle. The more sophisticated, diverse discussion into more important topics in which justice because the office of redistribution of power deriving the occupation in native North American indigenous nations have the same rights as any other to define citizenry. Cut it, define citizenry. Now, onto the app. First, group the Curry and Kapoor evidence. First, we need to reorient ourselves towards the liberatory politics in order to have any sort of actual policy actions that could do anything as an epistemic prerequisite, which means that the case of prior question 2, turn policy. We can't have policies until after the American idiots have no political agency whatsoever. They've been denied it and put into a place of social death and not able to access this realm. And turn it since they don't have access to this. Social death is a necessary prerequisite. Also means that we can't access hegemonic power relations if we're not in those places to begin with. Now on solvency. Tribal gun ban sparks Supreme Court backlash and victory to tribal jurisdiction and turns the whole case. Tweety 14. With the tribal gun ban of federal appellate court, the Supreme Court can be won by tribals' ability to make law that contradicts the current interpretation of the Second Amendment and results in narrowing the scope of tribal jurisdiction to an even greater extent. Some members of the Court of Justice concerned about the fact that tribes are not regularly bound by the Bill of Rights. And no inherency, fairness 15. Getting caught for having a hanging where you're not supposed to do is one of the tribal police will likely hit your hanging again inside a reservation. You need to learn the tribal law. Most of the tribes in the West have very different and very restrictive laws on carrying handguns. On his role of that. He says that we should prefer a post-fiat policy option, but he doesn't give his only words are the Curry Kapoor evidence that I've already responded to. Also, his evidence is really bad. It just says that we should look to hegemonic interventions, but fails to give an actual warrant. You should prefer this. You should prefer my explanations and my carded evidence over his analytics, blippy reasons to prefer a policy action, especially when he doesn't have a reason why policy actions are good, and doesn't defend the USFG either.
Okay. You can delete what you didn't read.
Yeah. Here, you want me to? I'll just.
What is this?
Computational neuroscience homework. Look at this GUI. The software we're using was coded, like some of the scripts like have the author and date of like 1989. Okay, it's terrible.
No one's updated it since.
The last update was in 2003.
And where you got the card to?
Here, you'll understand when I open it up.
That's so ugly.
You have to like press enter when you do new values. And then you
only
reset
read
everything.
2 reasonability arguments, right?
Okay.
You ready for process?
Yeah. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to articulate what a topical version of the app would look like.
Same app, just instead of a tribal governments, you use the USFG.
Okay, let's talk about the K. What's the link?
There are several links. So the first one is your use of tribal sovereignty. That just furthers colonialism. It's an idea that like, oh, we can get out of the problem, but the initial use of tribes was just for a colonial practice so that white men could come in, colonize, and use the leaders in order to dominate.
Me giving tribes rights is colonialist.
You using the tribal governments that are in place. The fact that you suggest we should have to give them the rights in the first place already presupposes that you are in a place to give those rights. They should have those before.
It's the idea of me being an American, or like, sorry, not an American.
You literally just said we should give them those rights. What rights are there to give them when it is their land? Like, hey, we should give Switzerland the right to like make their own laws. Like, what? That doesn't make sense.
Okay, cool. So is the Errico 2K evidence the only link argument?
No.
Okay, what's the other one?
The second link evidence is the one under that, Bird 2011, which talks about your rhetoric, or not your rhetoric, your discourse about internal colonialism, and that just, again, re-erects the U.S. as a master and gets rid of indigenous sovereignty.
What is internal colonialism?
It's like the idea of tribal sovereignty as like, hey, we'll give them their own power, when really we're just holding the U.S. above them and their democratic, like, ideals.
Okay. Let's talk about the alternative then. Your alternative is to engage in politics of the impossible. What does that mean?
That means we should look at things that like appear unfeasible and impossible in order to solve for the problem in the
So
first
let's do
place.
something impossible to solve something.
Churchill 96 gives empirical examples. He talked about the Vietnamese, the Algerians, the Sandinistas,
Okay.
and they had no prayer of attaining victory, no way to get there, and yet because they believed in the impossible, they were able to do so. So we need to
Okay.
orient ourselves in that way first. We have to abandon
what's the status of the alternative?
Conditional.
I want you to define it unconditionally.
No, I think it's fair to read one unconditional, or one conditional
Okay.
K.
Can the af occur in the world of the alt?
Can the af occur in the real?
In the world of the alt.
I suppose it's possible.
So it's not mutually exclusive.
Well, I think that the links are a big problem with the alt. I would say that it is mutually exclusive in that you use
I
tribal
want you to
governments.
defend in a world where the alt, where the plan cannot happen.
I can solve for the af. You're getting down to that. I can solve for the af. That
But you cannot implement the you cannot implement the plan text of the 1AC, but you can solve for the af.
No, it could feasibly happen as a result.
Okay,
but
sure.
that's at best.
Let's talk about the 2014 evidence. It says that can you explain this to me? It leads to Supreme Court backlash.
Yeah, so Tweety 14 says that Supreme Courts would backlash and just get rid of tribal jurisdiction, turning the entire case. So basically, tribes are not bound by Bill of Rights. They don't have rights. So if you made this ruling, Supreme Court would be like, nah, and kick them out and remove any rights that they have, which again is problematic. But
I'll take right.
It's all just membrane voltages, and the really cool thing is there are like a set of equations that describe the dependence of like various ion channels on the membrane voltage and how they like open and close, and then also tau, which is the time constant for its opening and closing, and basically all of those things put into an equation can like model a very simple neuron entirely accurately.
What kind of math do you need for this?
You don't really need to understand the math because the computer does it for you, but like some calculus would be useful. It's mostly just like the physics of it though. Like tau is when you get to 63% of like the maximum or whatever the time that it takes to get there, and that's related to E in a math way that I used to be able to explain, but can't at the moment. So it's like I have to use this. I'm playing around with the parameters to figure out what how do I explain this? What the parameter for activation of sodium channels is under certain voltage conditions, which I know, but I have to figure it out experimentally using the simulation.
That sounds like a bitch.
It is. This was due Tuesday, and then it got extended to Thursday.
Oh.
And
now it's Friday.
And it's minus 3% per day for one assignment. And the two lowest scores get dropped.
Yeah,
There's also some
you'll be
bonus that I
fine.
can do on top of it, and I participate like a motherfucker in class, so like whatever. But oh my god, it's such a headache because like here's literally this is the neuroscience, and then this is here's how to talk to your computer to make it do what you want. Like just for this one tutorial.
Wow.
I'm not working on this. That's not. It's not happening.
You gotta
right
do
now.
it.
I do, but I mean, most of this is easy except for like these two.
What was the calculus class you took last?
Just took life sciences calc 1. And that was a year and a half ago.
So does that go through like integration and series?
Yeah. Integration. Yeah. But I don't remember any of that. You don't actually have to use the math.
Yeah,
it's more
like
just
the computer does everything.
It's more just like here. Let me show you like more like the kind of stuff that you.
Okay, 55 seconds.
I guess not.
Order's gonna be case, topicality, critique.
you reading anything new?
Yeah, I'm send that to you. All the tabs are gonna be different, and the doc's out of order. Do you want me to put it in order?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay. I'm not opening new documents. I'm just putting it in order.
like some made up thing turned into dude. Like,
It's a made up thing from Melissa from like eons ago.
this is just some cruel
It's
joke.
like I think it's a step down from like a key judge or whatever. It's like you're judging on one of the elims and you have a title or something like that. How did you end up here?
Dude, I don't know. I asked myself
What
that.
happened?
Just a set of disasters.
Okay, these are ugly. Never mind.
It's called 1AR.
Loading. Okay, this is it.
Everybody good? Case, topic, knowledge, critique.
Yep.
Okay.
We're on case.
It's going to start off on the plan.
Okay.
Extend the plan that American Indian tribal governments in the United States enacted and Europe's hand ban the American Indian reservation, the ban social violence, repression caused, but not in this on reservation. The key steps to shift toward self-determination. Now on the case turns. One on the Tweety evidence. First, what NASDA and WAVA or bills in Congress prove uniqueness for that Congress will have. Congress is passing more and more bills that allow for self-determination of American Indians, which means that there will be no rollback. Two, Tweety is speculative because he says that just some members of Congress may not like it. Three, turn two tribes have already passed gun bans, so the scenario is empirically denied because the Supreme Court will probably not have that happen. Four, turn four is the triad after the app because the tribes currently have very little sovereignty. That Riley evidence indicates that gun laws are the most possible avenue to achieve their scenario is not any worse than conceding the status quo. Now, also on the second evidence on the Fagara evidence, they just said that it's not inherent. That's not true. All it says that there are certain gun laws that are in place in some tribal reservations. We enact universal gun law, which means we're always going to be perversely more topical. Now, you have considered the entirety of solvency here, which means that we can evaluate the we can weigh decay, we can weigh the 1 ACVs decay. Now, topicality first. It's probably problematic that you concede a lot of the framing arguments. First of all, you concede the Churchill evidence, and the Williams 86 evidence says that we cannot role play as the USFG and talk about American tribes, because that is inherently colonialist, because they're imposing something on Native Americans by saying the US government ought to allow them to self-determine or ought to enact a tribal gun ban, and it's inherently colonialist itself, because there is no topical version of the affirmative, which directly functions as a turn on the theory, a turn on topicality, because there's no topical version on the app. You exclude discussion. Now, here's the counter-interpretation on the John Fett 2015 LD Tom, the app defense specifically a Native American tribal governments that the app is about to solve the app. The United States includes all areas under U.S. jurisdiction. That's reigning 95. The term United States means U.S. and all areas under the jurisdiction and authority there. BI means C standards. One discussion caused by the framing argument saying the Native Americans are left out of discussion of gun control activists saying failed to clearly analyze the relations and we need to debate to focus on impacts on Native Americans because they're constantly the whole reason they want to see is the reason why USFG actors are bad. Supposing an offended is bad for this turn offended because you exclude voices from the debate and continuing exclusion, which turns all your arguments people can't participate in debate if the education is flawed. That also because your arguments is a meta level question of fairness and whom affects and how it affects. There's two ground A. The topics will only be debated 5 months until DOC. The negative overlimits the app only only one act. It's not unique. So all your arguments is only half the policy topic. So it needs to be broad for us to discuss anything. Always over limiting, since you can always go over generics, but no plan. A motor plan goes into the topic goes stay on people quit the activity. Turns all standards if no one participates. The key to app flags the app. Only advantage of speaking the directions. The ability to pair parameters and plan only. Also gives better discussion because we're not just bots reading the same cards, but we learn new topics. Otherwise, we read arguments to the USFG actors and gives the intern counter plan and alternate action whereas I only get one actor now. On the line by line. On multi-actor field, one turn this gives you more ground, because you can defend solvency turns on any specific tribal ground, which means it turns all the way now. On predictability, one act is close, which means that you knew the app in the first place, so you should probably not value the next thing. No, the internal predictability is topical issue. We argue that topical issue is bad, that's the Raleigh 5 evidence, because it leaves that Native American discussion, which is problematic. Now, the third argument is ground. Now, cost by the first argument of multi-field after gives you infinite ground, and for example, give back the can or specific discounts to certain tribes. Now on the critique. Overview on the critique. You have considered the entire the second advantage of the self-determination argument. That's the 410 evidence. That's the 410 evidence. The impact is that the Americans lose their culture means that our arguments are that small social changes turns the entirety of the alternative, because people are more likely to use small changes because it answers all their link level arguments, because we are an example of the alternative. We give them back their land by land for self-determination. Now, also because terminal defense, because radical changes now they don't inevitably fail in some sort of way, which means that probability flows negative. Probability flows out. Also, we have an empowerment net benefit. So permutation do the app and the counterclaim, because we do app and the critique alternative, because because the United Americans really do not have a voice that will allow them to get their land back, or in a world where they can actually get their land. Instead of all permutation, the alternative and the app are non-unique. We can stop the oppression of non-unions and give them back the land at the same time. That's exactly what the app tries to do now. Back on the link level arguments, we don't let them extend arguments about internal colonialism, because we're not acting as the USFG to impose colonialism at all. We're just saying they should have their. We are just saying that they should be able to pass the law.
Okay. I have a minute 42 remaining. Do you mind cutting out everything you didn't read really quick?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I didn't read the E2K stuff, but the responses were made analytically. So, do you want me to just get rid of it?
Yeah, just get rid of it. And you read everything else in here? You didn't read subpoint 5 on the Tweety, right?
No, I didn't read subpoint.
Okay.
I think everyone else was read.
Alright.
What?
142 remaining, starting now.
Alright. What are you gonna do?
Read this amazing book.
This is a fascinating story so far.
Just rip a little bit, read the first two sentences.
It's up there. So this book is up there with the Lao Tzu, the Bible, the
Why does
Buddha's
probability
Gift
flow
of
take
Love.
on the K?
It's
Huh?
Why does
foundational work of
probability flow
literature.
It flows aft because it's more like the
That's
chance.
an
Okay,
attitude.
the chance of a small social change is more likely to occur than a
Narrow
radical change,
worldview
as
that
indicated
can't
by
account
solvency
for
of human
different
AC.
ideas.
Okay.
I feel like you asked me a question before that speech. I don't remember what the question was.
We were talking about.
You asked me like, what were you talking about? Thing. We may have actually moved on from it, but.
We're talking about math for a second. Dude, you should give this a read though.
Future president of the United States. It was unstrategic of him to skip the debate.
You think so? I think it shows strong negotiating leverage.
Guess it will be attractive to his supporters, but
I decided not to watch the debate because he didn't attend. Seriously, there really is no reason to watch the GOP debate if he doesn't attend.
I get it, but that's precisely like he could have gotten so much free press.
Yeah, that's true, but he doesn't need it.
So much free press.
I think the other issue is just like people like me who are watching it because it's like a funny TV show won't watch
Literally
without
opening the
Trump, but
speech
like
document
actual
and
Republican
amazing.
voters
Right.
like, probably will still watch.
Iowa.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I can't do this. I'm gonna fail out of school. It turns out that when one is like happy and has things that aren't school going on in life, it's a little bit more
It
difficult.
often trades off with
A
school
little bit more difficult to just automatically focus on school all the time.
for real.
Okay.
Turns out that's why I was so good at school sophomore year.
Aw.
And that's why I'm bad at school now.
Where about this? This is 2 and R. Terms. Where's yours? Do you mind if I grab yours, Stan? Thanks.
Oh right, you were asking me about fluid.
Yeah.
I
So that is a real thing.
think so.
So the order will be overview, K, case.
Okay. What's the overview?
You said
The overview, fluid on T.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
so overview case. Overview case.
Greg. That's a pretty good drawing.
It is, and I'll do that.
Okay, so
The
you want me
cards
to
aren't till the K.
you want me to go to T, then the K, then the K.
Yeah, there will be an overview to the round that I think is apt to flow on T.
Okay.
If you have room on the top of his counter insert.
Okay, that's fine.
And then Okay. Case. Okay. Opponent ready? Judge ready?
Yeah.
He's conceded no RBIs because T is a unique AF burden. That means he can't win on the T layer. I'm going to go for the K. His best arguments is that his small change is better and a perm, which is pretty abysmal given the size of the K. But briefly on the counter-interp, even if he wins the counter-interp is better, he says his interp says all areas under USFG, or under the US, which means he doesn't even meet his own interp. So under T, you can still drop him. He contradicted himself. That's a double turn. So go to the K. He says that we have to focus on small changes. Cross-apply the Churchill 96 evidence out of the alt evidence, which is that we need to focus on, we need to reject orthodox realism in favor of a politics of impossibility. We need to imagine a world where the US doesn't exist, where the USFG never function. That's the only way in order for the people, for the indigenous people to identify and see a world where they can actually have real change. He says that we need to focus on small changes that leads to a higher probability for the neg. But one, that's not true because one radical change is necessary. That it's a Churchill evidence that we have to look to it empirically proven through Vietnamese, the Algerians, and Sardinians. You don't respond to this. You've conceded that we need to create a bigger change. We can't just look at small changes, at small little incremental steps. Also cross-apply the Farrago 15 evidence off of the AF. This is not the Tweedy 14 evidence off of the AF that the Supreme Court will just backlash against certain arguments, which means that even if there are some instances in which it is a good idea, the Supreme Court is concerned about it, which means that the USFG shouldn't be even be getting any access in the first place. They should not be the ones dictating who has the rights at all. Also, even if you win and there's more probability for the neg, it doesn't matter. Just because we can say with 100% certainty that it might rain on a certain day doesn't mean that it is an impact we should care about. It does not matter if it rains tomorrow, but it matters if there's a possible social death. You've conceded the terminal impact out of the K, as well as the links debate, so we'll get there in a second. On perms, group them. First, it's not about giving the indigenous people a voice, but showing them that there's a possibility to have a life outside of social death, that there's an actual existence that they can aim themselves and orient themselves to. The alt is an instance of orientation, so your perm doesn't work. Don't allow new analysis in the 2AR, because that's in the next round. In the 2AR, he's going to get up and try and say like, oh, the perm is like combining your mindset in the AF, but he doesn't do that in the 1ARs. I can't respond to a 2AR argument. It's new in the 2. Don't give him credit for it. So. Also, we aren't giving them a voice, but rather we're sharing, we're sharing a new world, giving them a vision that they can focus to. Even then, turn on the perm, it leads to co-option. We must construct native identities outside of the state, otherwise indigenous people will become close in an oppressive relationship, which forces them to alienate themselves from their communities in the name of preventing their physical annihilation. Alfred and Cortancel 05. By trying to eradicate existence through erasure of the histories that provide the foundation for indigenous cultural identities, it sets us on the need for critical translation of artificial state-created identities are imposed on original people in the colonized parts of the state, imposed conception of indigenous identity, redo indigenous people as an ongoing colonial assault on their existence, signs that they have been dispossessed and disempowered of their own homeless identities, clearly state construction far from reflecting honest reconciliation. Aboriginalism is designed to serve as judges that surrender at the root of the colonial status of indigenous peoples are forced by survival to cooperate with the state authorities. This continued colonial process built indigenous peoples away from ultra-present sorts of political, legal construction as Aboriginal layer, relationships, communities, and blessings, connections to crucial living meaningful life. He will get up in the next section and say he doesn't defend the state, but he's using the tribal governments, which is regulated by the USFG. So even then, especially with the link cards, they said the Derico 2K and Bird 2011, which says that by using the tribal governments, they are an instance of colonialism. They start with colonialism. That is the first line of Derico. The tribes are product of use colonialism because the white man found a way to combine them and put them under one subheading so that way they could control them. We also see this is just parallels what happened in Africa when they parceled out land. Same thing in the Americas, and it just allowed for the whites to dominate. The richest Indians would have control over the land, and then the whites would give them more, the settlers would give them more money in order to take control of the rich Indians so that they could have control over the indigenous people as a whole. This is a conceded linkage to this is the Derico 2K and Bird 11 evidence that you conceded. Your only response to that I shouldn't get internal colonialism argument. That neglects the Derico 2K and evidence as well as the Bird 11 says that your internal colonialism is based on using the identity and idea of tribal sovereignty, not necessarily using the USFG, so you still definitely link. Now, extend the second piece of evidence, the Brainell 07. Sorry, give me a moment, I gotta pull it up. Extend breeding about 7 conceded you to retrench the foreign domestic distinction. You suggest that the indigenous people are domestic enough so that they can have rule lobby. You've conceded that it puts them into a place where they're neither external enough to negotiate treaties and neither domestic enough to have rights guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution. Means they have no recourse whatsoever. Your solution is unable to solve because you are not working or finding another solution. Extend Bird 11, which says that the colonialism causes Indigenous people to be in a place of social death. They have no agency. It is separate from their existence. They have no political recourse. Means that a policy action doesn't work. Also, a DA to the perm. Another reason why it's unable to persist in a state of social death now. Extends Street 04, which says that colonialism is the root cause of war. Means I'm able to solve for the violence that happens in the world of the F, but the F has no links as to why he's able to solve for the world of the K. Now, extend. I've already extended Churchill 96. Okay, so that should be sufficient on the K. So overview to the K. He has conceded the links. He has a couple perms. Any DA to the perm is any link to the perm. Any link is a DA to the perm. That's a reason to reject him for that, or reject his perms. Also, they would be severance out of the mindset and orientation of the AF anyways, which is another reason why you should reject them. Lastly, on the AF, even if he somehow wins the perm, there's no net benefit. He didn't extend any offense and just glibly answered tweet 14 in paragraph 15. So, extend tweet 14, let's go to lead to backlash, because it will remove all the rights. You provide unique stuff because you don't give a card, so you don't give him credence. And the second you say the specialty issue and that 2 tribes have already done it, 2 tribes doesn't count for 140 to 160. That's U.S. history evidence coming out of the T-shell. That says, so 2 out of 150 doesn't allow. Also doesn't give you try or die. You say there's little sovereignty. There can always be less sovereignty. Also, we need to reorient ourselves in another way so we can actually solve for the problem.
Okay, 55 seconds.
That's a great picture.
Overview on topicality, then it's going to be on the case truancy briefly extended in the NR on case, then another overview on the critique, and then we're going to go to the, then I'll sign poster there.
Okay. T case K.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You have the newest camera. Good to know you're not 4. That thing's huge.
Okay, everybody good?
Yeah.
You have considered the impact turn on topicality when you have considered the role of that as well, which is to resist oppression for American Indians using post-fiat policies, meaning that as long as your speech after reading topicality and you want to see as a turn because you increase colonialism by forcing me to defend the U.S. federal government state, you have conceded reasons why that is bad because they lead to more colonialism. That outweighs my double turn, any reasons for my double turn because that links harder to the role of that, which is the reason why you should vote neg on TD. You should vote neg on TD. He comes logically sequencing first. This was right in the NC, and he also reads T is dropped their beta, meaning the impact of the implication of the impact turn should also be dropped in later. So as long as he's conceded, you should probably vote him down for reading the speech act that you want to see that will allow him to be more colonialist. Now on the case, now he says that I read Bloom's response to the Tweedy arguments, but I'm pretty sure you flowed them pretty well. Now the Farragut evidence, he does not stand a war to the Tweedy evidence, saying that it would just lead to Supreme Court backlash. But there was there were a bunch of bills in Congress right now that said that Congress supports self-determination of Native Americans. So you aired egg here. This is Tweedy's completely speculative, where we provide empirics of why it's probably true that it's not going to lead to backlash. The Farragut evidence, there was no warrant extended, but even if there was, then the Farragut evidence just says that there are different tribe legislations, but that is not that when we by putting a universal handgun that does not take out inherency. Now on the K. The radical comes down to this. It comes down to whether small-scale change outweighs radical change the alternative. There's not enough work done here. And well, as you can see, a permutation on the line by line. So as long as I prove that I win both of those arguments, I'm probably going to win the round now. On the small-scale change B, you can see that the second argument, the second advantage of the AC, that is allows for a shift towards self-determination, which gives them their own rights, which means that gives them their own rights is an instance of the alternative. You prefer small-scale change over the NER. The warrant for this was there's one warrant you conceded to all of this, which says that we allow Native Americans to be empowered in order to get their land back. This was a conceded permutation argument. You have this flow, which is the reason why it's a conceded perm on why small-scale change outweighs radical change. Because even if radical change is plausible, it is more likely, it is better for the only way for us to engage in some sort of radical changes of Native Americans. If American Indians are not being oppressed by non-Indians or any sort of other arguments. Now briefly on the root cause argument on war. This was not extrapolated in the 1 and C. It was U and the 2 and R. So you should probably allow U to AR responses to it. Now the argument that he tries to extend that we control the he solves for case on the violence case. That's not true. If you call for the car talks about why American colonialism in Iraq or Afghanistan led to war. That is not true for why it will lead to war with Native Americans. And you should evaluate rounds based on the context of the round, on the context of whether it affects Native Americans or not. Which is why you should probably which is the reason why the small scale change which is why the AF will always solve for the violence against Native Americans. Now on the new evidence, the Alfred evidence he raised, this is the only dissent to the permutation as well as the idea of social death. I will get to both of them. Now one, he said that I use some sort of tribal state authority. That's not the argument. You should prefer in the context of Native Americans. They have their own gun laws to use, which is the reason why in the context we're not using tribal sovereignty. They have these own rights. We're just implementing. We're just expanding these. We're just expanding it to be a universal handgun law. On the dissent, which is social death. The permutation solves for this because it's not a social death. We are reorientation as well. Which is the second advantage.
division.
They're like, I don't have income. They're like, yeah, you owe $2,000 on your registration tax.
That's not improbable, I guess. But it's not
No.
like you're not going to get arrested with that. Okay, so I thought this was a pretty good debate. I voted app. I just didn't think there was a very good link to your critique. So I voted on the perm, and I thought like some of your link cards and your arguments are some like sort of interesting thoughts about native sovereignty, but I don't really understand why they implicate the app. So the first link argument I thought about is this kind of like foreign domestic link, and I'm with you, it's not really discussed by the 2AR or the 1AR, but I just don't understand where the app does this, or what the app is doing that's like distinguishing foreign from domestic populations in the way that your evidence is talking about. So I get that your evidence says Native Americans are placed in a difficult position where they don't receive treaty protections or the rights of US citizens. I don't know why the app makes that any worse, or what assumptions they've presented in the 1AC that sort of like play into this distinction. The second link is this like internal colonialism thing. And you know, tribal sovereignty is a Western concept. Tribal governments are often paid off by white settlers. I don't see why the app makes that any worse either. I don't understand why the call, at the very least, to criminalize non-Indians who trespass with guns on Indian reservations makes this sort of internal colonialism worse. I guess, like, it just seemed like I would be doing a little bit too much work for you to apply this to the kind of like self-determination thing at the end of the 1AC, because the phrase self-determination has a lot of baggage associated with it. And it seems to me like your cards are maybe some kind of indicted of the logic of self-determination, or of like asserting your independence from the US state maybe. But I just like, I couldn't really put that together into a complete argument based on the 2NR. And so I didn't give you a lot of that link. I guess, so, you know, I granted that maybe the app rests on some assumptions that like, you know, maybe the app relies on an unethical actor, I think. The problem is I don't know what the implication of that is, or I don't know why actors that were founded on unethical premises can never do anything ethical. So it seems to me like tribal governments have a messed up history, white settlers have often taken advantage of them, but it still seems like it's a better world where we criminalize the non-Indians who are bringing guns on Indian reservations. I thought about this Alfred card to answer the perm. This seems to be talking about using the United States as a colonial state. I don't think the app does that. Everyone agrees there. The Supreme Court turn, I think you're losing uniqueness and therefore the link. There are both bills now and handgun bans on various Indian reservations. Neither of those have resulted in the stripping of rights for native populations. I thought about T. I just didn't think it was really a complete argument in the 2NR. I thought you were doing really well on T, at least in the 1NC, and this argument was very compelling to me. I don't think that tribal governments are the United States government, and I thought you should have extended it later on, but as is, I don't think you extended an impact to it. It seems like the app is impact turning your topicality argument and saying, fine, maybe we don't need our counterinterp, but whatever, we shouldn't have to defend the USFG because they're evil. We'll just defend these tribal governments. So if you want to go for this, they don't meet their counterinterp thing, I would just go all in on T in your last speech and say, you don't meet your counterinterp. That proves it's not an effective limit. You forced me to prepare for every possible case. That's bad. And I think that's a really good 2NR for me. Like I'm happy to vote on these T arguments. I think you just need to develop them a little bit more.
Alright, I'm kind of curious on the perm debate.
Yeah.
I mean, he put 5 seconds on the links in the 1AR. How is that sufficient to like just remove the link debate?
I
He
think
doesn't give
so.
any reasons for why the perm is able to solve for it either.
I think there are reasons why the perm is able to solve, at least in that it combines this like incremental change framework that's like the plan on its merits makes the world a little bit better, has some positive consequences, incremental reform. The way I understand this incremental reform argument is like, we don't foreclose radical thought or radical change. Imagining a world where we kick America off the map, both sort of in the way that he's explaining this permutation and also just sort of intuitively to me, I don't understand why legislation passed by different Native American tribes would foreclose that idea. So I guess a better way of putting it is just like
the links, like he doesn't answer the links. I guess that's
But you don't make them links really. They just seem like FYIs to me. To be a link, you have to tie it to something that he's saying. And I just don't think I thought your speeches were good and that they had some very interesting ideas about native sovereignty and the way that colonialism operates. I just couldn't see what assumptions the 1AC was circulating that kind of reified these structures or that,
So I just needed to explain them better.
Or explain them better, and it's even
like an issue of like him responding to them and me missing responses. It was just an issue of me not explaining them.
Yeah, exactly. You answered, you have ink against all of the arguments that you were supposed to answer. Like, you physically put something there. The issue is just I just didn't understand what the connection to the AF was. And so the actual theory stuff I think is very good. Your take on sort of the history of colonialism in this country is very good, but you just need to tie it to some of the rhetoric and assumptions of the 1AC a little bit more. And I think this is sort of like a general trend that I've seen in more critical debates where people sort of rely on link arguments just to the agent instead of problematizing some of the assumptions that are evident in the 1AC. So I'm sure there are great critiques of self-determination as a concept. Perhaps it relies on Eurocentric notions of the state or how society should be organized. And I think those critiques could be promising, and your authors sort of hint at them. But I think as is, the only thing that your link cards are really pointing to, or the only thing that you're sort of pointing me to when I'm considering why the AF is a bad idea, is just kind of you use these tribal governments. And to me, I didn't think that there was a good impact to that link argument. So, you're not, it's not like you're not flowing stuff. You're answering the arguments that you need, but I just didn't think that the link arguments problematized the 1AC well enough, and so I thought the permutation explanation
My
was
other
enough.
question then is, what about the social death and sequencing arguments where we have to have a world to aim ourselves towards, and we have to imagine that sort of existence before we can create policies?
Yeah, I thought that argument was okay, but I don't understand the last clause of what you said, which is why we have to do that before we can think about policies. It's an assertion that the two are mutually exclusive. I don't understand why thinking about a world in which white people are punished for bringing guns onto Native American reservations forecloses the sort of radical idea of a world where America doesn't exist at all. And that's not to say that there's no argument there, or that the sequencing argument has no merit. It's just not really explained in this debate.
So which one of his arguments then answers that, even if it was an assertion?
It's not a complete argument to me, and I think these permutation arguments about small-scale reforms demonstrate that sort of calling for one tangible policy is not mutually exclusive with calling for a radically different world.
So two last questions. The second to last one. Where does he justify, in the 2AR, why small changes are net better or able to solve? Where is that done?
They don't have to be net better. They just have to be good because of the perm, which we talked about earlier. But I think the first 30 seconds or 40 seconds on the critique are empowers Native Americans to get the land back. Radical change is only possible if they're not oppressed by non-Indians. The AF is good independently, even if it doesn't directly result in the end of America. That's what the perm is for. I had that set of arguments at the top of this page.
Okay. And I guess last question for 2NR strat, do you think I should have gone all in on T?
Yeah, I think so. I thought you were doing well on T. The T argument was very convincing. If I judge you again, I think you don't need to spend so much time on the impact to T. I believe that T is a voting issue, and that if the F is not topical, then they should lose.
Okay.
So, yeah, you don't need to read that Galloway card, for example. If you just win that they're not a reasonable interpretation of the topic, then you win the debate automatically.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Is there any way that AF could make the perv/link story happen?
Yeah, I think I would get rid of this, T is a reverse voting issue thing, because I probably will never vote on that.
Okay.
And if you just spend, some more time explaining why calling for small reforms is not mutually exclusive with radical thought, I think that helps.